Well, praise the Lord, and praise the Lord again, everybody. We welcome you here. You're like, what is going on this Saturday noonday at Gethsemane African Methodist Episcopal Church? I'm so glad you asked. One first, before we even start, we're going to ask you to invite somebody to watch. So share this feed, whatever platform you're on, Facebook, YouTube, whatever. Share this feed, invite somebody to come in. Let them know that we are having something special at Gethsemane this afternoon. We're having something special. So invite somebody to come out, wake somebody up, call somebody up, let them know it's game time. It's game time. And we're doing something we've done before, a little different today. We're doing something, amen. So invite somebody to come watch with us. I'm going to, let's see. We have the Reverend, I got to say we have the Reverend Candace L. Green with us today. And she's going to let us know what's going on because this is her child that the Lord birthed out of her womb. So we're going to turn it over to Reverend Candace now, and she's going to let us know what is going on this Saturday morning.
Good morning, Gethsemane African Methodist Episcopal Church. Thank you so much for joining us today for our mental health and wellness ministry Facebook dialogue. As all of you know, or you may not know, this ministry launched in November in response to all of the grief and mourning that our church members have been dealing with. We're on this journey, this healing journey through mourning and grieving the loss of loved ones. And so what Pastor agreed, thank you, Lord, Pastor agreed that we start this ministry just to address some of the issues that we're dealing with as we're grieving. And so today we are going to invite back. We're excited to have Miesha Rice, who's back at our virtual table for a dialogue about the impact grief has on our relationships. Now, you all know Miesha very well. She is the founder and CEO of Whole Family Healing Group, which is an outpatient mental health agency for individuals, families, couples, children, and military veterans. And she's not alone. This time she's brought with her Clifton Sherrod. He's an MSW who is also at Whole Family Healing Group. So we're so excited to have both of them here with us this afternoon. Now, before I pull them on screen, I just want to say we have a couple of instructions for all of you who are watching on Facebook and I was going to say Instagram, Facebook and YouTube. Please join the discussion. This is an open discussion, an open dialogue. So don't be shy. Share your comments, share your thoughts, your reflections, your questions in the chat. And Pastor and I will be monitoring the chat, and we will pull those questions and comments and just your thoughts on screen so we can all talk about them. So without any further ado, let me bring on Miesha Rice and Clifton Sherrod. Thank you so much. Welcome.
Hey.
Oh, hello.
Yes. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
So, like I said, Miesha, you're no stranger to the Gethsemane AME family. But for those who don't know, share just a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, I'm born and raised in Baltimore, Maryland. I have a master's degree in clinical social work. I'm the founder and CEO of Whole Family Healing Group. And I am so grateful to be here and doing this work. And I don't even know what else to say. I'm just excited to be here and talk about relationships and grief. And I'm so happy to have my amazing clinician, Cliff Sherrod, here with me to get some of this love and share from the male perspective, because it is so important for us to learn how to work together.
Yes. So Clifton, thank you for joining us. And I'm glad that Miesha kind of segued into to share how much the male perspective is important in this conversation. So share just a little bit about yourself so those who are watching can learn about you.
First and foremost, thank you for having me. As Miesha, I was born and raised in Baltimore, Maryland. I too have my master's degree as a clinical social worker. I've been in the field for over 15 years. I love to work with those family, children, And I also, as my current employer, I work for the CTR as assistant veterans and service members with their benefits.
Awesome. Awesome. And just so you know, Pastor Hudson and his lovely wife who's sitting there with him, they're both veterans.
Nice.
Oh.
Awesome. Thank you for your
Yeah.
service.
Thank you. And I can help you out too if you need me.
Yes.
20 years and 10 days. Thank you, Lord.
That's right.
So let's dive into our topic. We're going to be talking about how grief impacts our relationships. And so, you know, in our conversations, especially our first one that we had back in November, Miesha, we talked about how, you know, we can grieve on multiple levels. We can grieve the loss of a job, the loss of a pet, the loss of a way of life, grieving when you become an empty nester, the loss of a friendship, all of this in addition to losing a loved one. And so this year, many of us experienced layered grief. I'm calling it layered grief, where all of us we were hit a multitude of times with grief from all different directions.
Yeah.
So what is it about loss that causes such an impact on how we interact with each other?
Well, the first thing I wanted to say is that relationships in itself, it takes a lot of work just to maintain them, whether it's, you know, with your spouse, your friend, family, and whatever we have going on already in those relationships and what needs to be, you know, rectified or addressed, those things don't always go away when the loss happens. So a lot of times we are dealing with the grief and we have to pause on those other things that were already going on that maybe we had a plan to address or, you know, still need to address, whether it's communication, something that happened between, you know, us personally that needed to be addressed. And when the loss happens, that becomes, you know, that takes precedence over anything else that's going on, because it puts you in a different state of mind, and that has to be addressed.
Yeah. Yep. Clifton, did you have any words on that?
Yeah, I agree totally with Miesha. And from a male's point of view, it's more of, as I stated earlier when we was talking, it's communication and being able to get those feelings out and talk. Because as men, we tend to hold those emotions in and not be able to address them. Then we wind up bottling all that energy, and then it leads to multiple things like high blood pressure, bad health, and things along those lines. So that's what I would add to it.
Yes, and we had our Facebook Live in December was talking about how grief impacts the body and the health issues that can spring up as a result of the uncommunicated or the grief that we're storing in our bodies. So you just touched on that again for us, which is important for us to know and to remember. And I think since we're talking about relationships, I think we should kind of touch on today 4 different facets, like the relationship with self, with our spouses, with family and friends. I think those are the key relationships that we're all dealing with constantly. So what I've discovered is that none of us are prepared for death, right? It's not something that we want to talk about. It's not something that, even when someone says, you know, this is what I want when I pass, and we're always like, what are you talking about? That's not happening right now. We got years before that. We don't want to hear any of that. And so we avoid it. And then when it hits us, we don't know how to deal with it. So as therapists or people who work with folks who are struggling with this, how do you suggest that we better prepare for death and mourning?
I was going to say, just in the grief work, you know, that I've done over the years, and even more recently, I try to help my clients to rethink, you know, and not process their feelings. Like whatever you're feeling about this loss, it's okay. Like there's no right or wrong way to feel. If you're angry, sometimes we can be angry at the person, that we've lost for whatever reason. We may have wanted more time with them. We may have felt like they didn't take care of themselves, or, different things. I try to also have them look at this as a reminder to not have any regrets, or have as least, the least amount of regrets in this life that you have on this earth as possible. And so that we can, it's a reminder, not so much always a negative thing, but a reminder that all of us are going to have that issue one day. We're all going to grieve someone, and somebody's going to grieve us. So how do you want to, leave this earth? How do you want to have how do you want to remember the person, that you've lost? What do you want to do with them while they are here? How do you want to enjoy life with them? And I think that also helps us to forgive, a little more as well, because there's no need to hold on to so many things that we hold on to, knowing that, at some point none of us will be here in this space that we know right now.
True. Very true. Pastor, did you want to chime in on that when thinking about like the I guess the spiritual side of that question?
When I was thinking, I'm like, we could plan as much, have the best plans in the world, down to who's preaching, down to who carrying your casket and everything else. And there's still going to be much grief and much pain. We'll still be filled with those same emotions. Because as you said, you might think you're ready, but then when you realize that person is not right next to you anymore, you can't reach out and touch them. You can't call them. It affects you mentally. It affects your body. It affects so many aspects of who we are, even spiritually. Because the most spiritual person can be thrown into a dark space. This is stuff that seminary can't teach you how to get out of.
Right.
But it takes, it takes leaning on the Lord, and then leaning on your sphere of influence, those who are around you. As I told the brothers in our meeting today, we are our brother's keeper. And so that goes through through our lifetime. We have to have somebody that we can physically also lean and depend on, somebody that's going to help us out in those darkest of days, because all of us will experience those times.
Yes.
Yeah. I think I have one little comment, and I'm going to put up a question that someone just put up on Facebook. But in walking through this season of grief for myself personally, I felt like I should know how to do this. Like, why can't I figure out how to navigate this whole thing? Because I'm thinking about it with my head, like, okay, I'm gonna grieve for this couple of months, and then it's gonna be over, and I'm gonna move on. No, I hear a song and I start crying in the car, or I smell something and I'm crying about my grandmother who died 12 years ago. Like it seems to be ongoing, which then kind of connects us with the question that Mr. Smith is asking. And he says, does grief have an end date?
No.
Absolutely
not.
No.
We laugh because, it just doesn't. We giggle because we like, I wish that's what the laugh is about. I wish it did have it.
Right.
My mother gave my wife gave my parents a Christmas gift, and it was a memorial blanket. So she gave my mother a picture of her mother on the blanket, and she gave my father a picture of his mother on the blanket. And my father's mother died, I think, was 81.
Wow.
But when I saw it, it brought back emotions
Yeah.
that I thought had an end date a
Mhm.
long time ago. And so, yeah, would be nice if they did.
Yeah.
But no.
And,
Yeah.
and you know, in relationships, we have to remember that our partner, our friend, our family member could be grieving for years, whether they show the emotion that we feel they should show or not. You have to be, empathetic and be patient and be respectful, of your loved one and their grieving process, because it doesn't have an end date at all. You could be okay for a long time, just like Pastor said, and see something and it could trigger you, and you could have a couple of days or a week or the rest of the day could just, have you in some kind of way. Like I'm sitting here thinking about my mom, right now, trying not to get choked up because that's just what happens.
Yeah.
I would say give them their flowers while they're here, to get all, just spend as much time as you can with them, because time is something that you'll never get back.
That's right.
So when you have that time, I'm not saying it's going to make it better, but you have some great moments that you can reflect on
Yes.
and think back to, and that helps some people get through the grieving process.
Comfort you in some way.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
preached the entire sermon right there.
Yes.
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you.
So you know what? That helps us to segue to the next set of relationships, which is pivoting to spouses or those we're in like close relationship with. Um, so this morning, as I was, reflecting on this topic, and with the spouse, my husband and I have been married for 20 years, and his father passed away 10 days after our second child was born.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm literally coming out of the hospital. My father-in-law dies, but my husband also lost his job, and we totaled our car all within the span of 7 days. And at the time, I didn't realize that he was dealing with multiple layers of grief. And he totally shut down. And that ties in with a question that one of our members is asking, Sister Monica. What advice would you give a male to help them open up and share their thoughts and feelings instead of holding them in?
You have to give them a safe space, and allow them to process their thoughts and being at its time. If it's more of a detrimental situation, like my wife and myself, we put timestamps on things. If I don't feel like talking about it, I'll say, hey, I don't want to talk about it. I can't talk about it at this moment, but I can talk about it today at 6 o'clock. So at that point, I'll block that time out for her. That means no phone, social media, TV, and everything is off. So you have to allow, and as men, we have blinders on. And when I mean blinders, we only see tunnel vision. And so we just focus on the house, the wife, the family, the kids. And so when that's disrupted, we have an issue of not focusing on ourselves and our personal health.
I was telling you earlier, I was watching a podcast that was 5 men together in this podcast. And they were talking about how one of the other discussions they were having was how they kind of envied that women were so open with their emotions and can, call up a girlfriend and say, you know what, this is how I feel about blah, 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 and, be able to talk about it. But they were saying that even with, in their circle, they didn't feel comfortable sharing their intimate thoughts with a friend or with their wives. And so, yeah, go ahead. How do we address that?
Well, men have to be, growing up from boys to men, as boys, we were taught we got to be tough. Don't cry. You gotta be tough. So that started at an early age. And as a man now, and as I shared with y'all earlier, I have a close friend that me and him get naked in front of each other, not physically taking our clothes off, but it's I'm going through something. I can actually call him up and say, this is what I'm going through, relationship, life, anything. And we had that conversation, a true conversation. And then once we finish that conversation, it stays right there. He's not bringing it back up to me. I'm not bringing it back up to him. And it's just still that safe. Hey, pick up the phone, call. I honestly think that as men, we need that one friend that we can actually pour into each other with. And for example, I have say 1,200 friends on Facebook, but my circle of friends is only 5 people. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm not going outside of that realm. And I just think that as men, we need to open up and be truthful to ourselves, but we also have to be vulnerable, but we also have to have that safe space to be vulnerable. And as my wife, I should be able to talk to her and not have her regurgitate that to anybody else or throw it back in my face later down the line. Because once you do that to a man, we shutting off, period. Now, you can have a conversation about it. It's a way to choose your words to say, hey, can we talk about this? I want to talk about what affected you, the conversation we had, and we can move forward from there.
Yeah, I've been I've experienced that before. And the shutdown lasted a long time, and I mean months.
Yeah, of course.
Months. Good. And I had to pray about it.
Because because like I stated earlier, as boys, we are taught to be tough. Am I right, Pastor? We are taught to be tough.
Right.
So it's not. So now I got to hold all these emotion in, but then when I feel comfortable with you to express it, and then you throw it back in my face, I'm like, oh, I gotta shut off. I gotta shut it all off. So yeah, it's you gotta. Men are emotional too, but it's a different type of emotion.
What kind is it? Can you tell?
Yeah, please enlighten us.
I'm sorry.
Enlighten us.
Right.
No. Like I have a bunch of metaphors, and for example, like a woman. A woman is like a bank vault. Once you in, you in. But once you out, you out. Because once she locked that bank vault, that's it. The money and everything is in there.
That's good.
The money and everything. As men, we'll say, hey, okay, she violated me. We'll give her a chance, but we're gonna stand in the background. We're gonna say, hey, and see that leads to other things that you don't want to have in your relationship. You don't want your spouse going talking to somebody else about what y'all have in y'all house. That's a sacred place, and that's where it should stay. Not going out, because most of the time we spend it is at work. Yeah. So eventually, I don't use that term work wife, work husband. No, don't use that. You're my co-worker. Period. So when people start saying those terms, you gotta watch out. Saying men, men are like dogs. And when I mean dogs, I'm saying it like this. We are loyal as long as you take care of us. See, you rub us in the head, you rub our back, we good to go. You feed us, we good to go.
No chaser. Right.
Yeah. But I think too, our job as wives is to provide or create that safe space, or that space of peace in at home. Because as we've seen in time after time, the world is created to tear our men down. And so coming home is that safe space where they can be rebuilt. But if we're creating a space where there's so much animosity at home, that's when they sit in the car for an hour before they come in, or we're
take that long route home.
Yeah. Yeah, because going home is just as crazy and toxic. So,
Yeah.
and then when we're dealing with grief, and understanding, I think what I had to understand with my spouse, which I didn't, because this was the first time in our marriage that we dealt with losing someone, or with death, how he processes death and grieving is different than how I process. So I'm very emotive. I will talk about it. I want to talk about it. My husband is very intro. He wants to think about it and process it. But I can't force him.
No.
Like, just talk to me, because that's annoying.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's also not honoring his process.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. And I think for women, we have to be mindful of not trying to fix everything, because we do, we go and we do and we want to, fix and make everything right, because historically that's just what we have done. And that's what we have shown. That's what all of my aunties, my grandmother, my mother, that's what they show. They just did and fixed and made everything right and did that. But we can't do that. We have to respect our partners, allow them the space to be vulnerable, let them feel protected and appreciated, and
and give them that space.
Yeah.
That's the key. Give them the space, and you allow a man to have space, he'll come back and talk to you. But I get it. As a couple, you should have a time stamp on that time to have that communication. You can't let it dwell down the line. Okay, honey, I'm gonna give you your space, but to make us have, not to make us, but to have this conversation, we need to have this conversation. We have to have this conversation before we go to sleep, for example. And I'm a firm believer in not putting your head to pillow with an argument between your spouse. And that could start a lot of grief. So
and a sleepless night.
That's true. Yeah.
When Brother Clifton mentioned strength, when you think about a man, what you think about? You think about strength. We have since youth, we've been told we have to be the strong ones.
Yes.
But what does that mean? You gotta think, well, what does that mean? Does that mean I can't show my emotions? Does that mean I can't cry? Does that mean I can't dance in church? Does that mean I can't throw up my hands and praise the Lord? What does a man being strong look like? That's some of the things that men have to deal with. Now, when it comes to showing grief, how can we show grief and at the same time show strength? Those are I'm telling you, those are things that a man has to process. I'm expected to be a man. I'm expected to be this image of strength. But when it's time for grieving, how does that look for a man? How does that look for me conversing with my wife? And does she allow me that space to be emotional?
Yeah, that's the key.
Important.
Yeah, that's the key.
Does she allow me, and not just my spouse? I mean, whatever sphere you're in, are they allowing me to show my emotions? Because believe it or not, there is still strength in our emotions. There is strength. Wow. But again, as Brother Clifton said, we are told that our image should be that of strength, no matter what. And that's killing us.
Yes. Yep.
Think about that.
Yep.
Yeah, wow, that was powerful. And it made me think about like you said, growing up as a young boy, when you are told now you're a male of the house. So you got to deal with, and as a young boy, you saying you the man in the house. Now you looking at things around there like, how can I deal with this? How can I deal with that? That's a part of grief too, because you don't know how to deal with it. And if you ain't have that example of what a real man looks like, or have that experience of being around a male to follow up or mimic, you're gonna have some you're gonna have that grief and you're gonna have some issues down the line.
Exactly. Yep.
Hmm.
Very true.
Wow, this makes me think about parenting and what message am I sending to
Yeah.
my sons and my daughter about strength,
Yeah.
and what that means, and how do you express yourself and your emotions,
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
and how can I decode some of. Well, that's what whole family healing group is all about.
Yes, yes, yes. Let me say this: the
Some help
greatest
to,
strength that a
so,
man can show is love.
yeah.
Yeah, period.
I love
Mm.
that.
The greatest
Say
strength.
that again, Pastor. Say that again.
The greatest strength that a man can show is love.
Hmm.
Is love.
Yeah.
Um, how many we when we look at our landscape of our communities, and I'm straight. I'm a country boy from West Baltimore. When we look at our communities, we have to ask, where is the love? Because that seems like that's what's missing out of our families. You know, we all say, okay, they come from a broken family.
Mm-hmm.
Only way a broken family is broken is if there's no love.
Hmm.
Yeah,
That,
that's a deep hole that I can go down any day.
and the perfect segue for us
Yeah.
too to start talking about the third relationship, which is relationship with family,
Mhm.
and the impact that grieving has on the family. Because what I'm coming to realize is that, um, we haven't cleaned the slate with our family in decades.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So we
That's
could
across the
still be
board.
mad at
Oh yeah.
cousin Sally and how she acted at grandmama's funeral 20 years ago. And we either speaking to her or not, but we definitely talking about her with the rest of the family,
Right.
and how that impacts our relationships. And when I'm kind of sticking with, the grieving and mourning death, um, rather than some of the other forms of grief that I mentioned earlier, because I know, grieving or dealing with family loss is a big doozy for the
Yeah.
family, because
Mm-hmm.
many times we don't see each other until that funeral,
Yeah.
because of all of the trauma and all of the miscommunication and all of the issues that we might have with our family. We're only coming together for that funeral, and then we're
Right.
praying, please don't let her say, or don't let him do. So we're going in with the mindset of there's going to be conflict and a problem.
Right.
Um, so, and it kind of reminds me of, the movie Soul Food, which for me, I don't care for that movie, because in that movie there are three sisters who play three different roles, and the sister who really takes care of the family is the one who's discarded by everybody constantly. But it talks about our toxic relationships and how you're supposed to kind of swallow it all down and not bring it up. But the mother's death forced everybody to deal with the family issues. How do we decode this grieving and family stuff?
Oh,
It's a lot.
I mean, the family stuff starts from,
Generation.
our parents and their siblings from when they were kids.
And their
Generation.
So
issues.
there's generational stuff, that goes on, that is just, I don't know, it's very difficult to even deal with or manage. Or for us, like for this, generation, I just try to stay out of it. But am always there, to support my aunties, I'm there to support the second and third cousins and things like that. But a lot of the things that they have going on, because it's in my family also. This is the reason why
Amen.
I started Whole Family Healing Group, because my family did not do the work that they needed to do to stay and stick together. So now I get a chance to help families process, these different challenges and things that they have had over the years. And it's a blessing. I don't mean to go off on a tangent, but it's a blessing when I have a mom and a daughter call me and, the mom is 80, the daughter is 60, and they want to, try to work some things out. That's a blessing.
Yes.
But it's difficult, the grief on top of what was already going on. You just have to manage as best as possible.
Yeah. Clifton?
I would say from family dealing with a man's point of view, you have to forgive. And when I say you're not forgiving the person that done something to you. You're forgiving them for yourself so you can move on, so you're not locked in that block of grief.
Yeah.
Because you have to forgive the individual to move on. And I'll say, because there was a gentleman that I used to work with years ago, and he asked me that same question. He said, how do I forgive my father for abusing me? Yeah. So, and I just said we had that conversation. I just said, you have to forgive him for you. Because if you don't, you will wind up going down that same path of abuse eventually. Because it's a vicious cycle, like it repeats itself.
Yeah. Brother Garfield says, and it all ties in, when I was growing up, my father never told us that he loved us, but he showed us. I don't end a conversation without saying that I love you, whether to family or friends. That's kind of breaking that generational, I don't want to say curse, but that generational behavior, so that your family knows through what you say and what you do that you love them. And
that's important.
Yeah.
That's important.
It's important to hear it.
That's
too.
important for a child to hear it. I know you're buying me clothes, you're making sure I have what I need. I'm not wanting anything. But a child needs to hear that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And especially as a man telling his young son and daughter the same thing.
Yeah.
Because a young man is going to emulate his father. And a young daughter's first love is her father. So that's a basis of a lot of dynamics within 1 to 2 people. So yeah, it's very important to say I love you.
Yeah. That nurturing is so important, and there is science behind a lack of nurturing showing up honestly in young kids, teens, as like ADHD and things like that. That's why I'm not a big advocate on how we diagnose our kids, because a lot of times it has to do with the way they grew up, or something that was that they just didn't get, that they need to get, different things. But yeah, so what you all said is exact.
Wow. I just thought about when you're talking about a daughter hearing that from our father, and I just thought I never heard that from my dad growing up. I was 40 plus the first time I heard my father say, I love you, I've always loved you. And I was like confused, like, really?
Yeah.
So I mean, it is so important.
Yeah.
Even if you're 40.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. And one other, Sister Monica says, when we're talking about family and the communication issues, she said it's stuff that is never talked about, those secrets and conflicts. And that's what comes from the older generations.
Yes.
Yeah.
Stuff that has never been shared, but that people still remember, and the trauma of it, they still remember, and they still interacting with all of that. And they bring that to us, the next generation, and we're supposed to still continue to do what they do. No,
we gotta ask them now. Why am I not supposed to like Auntie again? What did she do?
Right.
Exactly.
Why I gotta hold on to this secret?
What happened?
Right.
Well, back in 1947,
right.
It's like, wait, I wasn't even a thought at that time.
Exactly.
What? So yeah, it's the family. So I guess my question is, where do we start with healing the family? Do we just start where we are with
Yes.
our little group?
Yeah.
And open
Yes.
communication.
Yes.
Open communication, and just because in order to start healing, you have to be truthful and address the issues.
Mm-hmm.
You can't dance around it. It's just if it's an issue that is there, like they say, the elephant in the room, you got to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Then once you deal with it, you can start maneuvering, and you can start maneuvering and start dealing with that issue. But if you dance around the issue, you'll never get it done. And like it was stated earlier, like I know when I was growing up, my grandparents, when I used to go to their house like once or twice every week. And when it came down to a serious conversation, you got to leave the room.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it wasn't like, hey, you got to leave the room. Go outside on the porch, do something.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you just got to address those issues. And that's how everything, I believe, starts with healing, is to address the issue.
Mm. So I have a friend who just sent this text message to me this morning. The difference between calling in and calling out. And she says calling out is when you see or hear or interact with someone and they're doing something you don't like, so you withdraw, but you don't address it. But calling in is when you address it and you say, okay, this is how you made me feel about blah, 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 or this, and then you can let it go, but you're not internalizing it by calling in. That's her. That's what they do at her job. And so I was like, wow, that's really impactful. And so Clifton, that goes along with what you were saying with address that elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Because we have to.
Mm-hmm.
It's a professional way to say everything. You can be real professional to say everything now.
Right.
In the workplace, just
family.
Family can be a little lean, but professionally in the workplace, it's a proper way to say everything. I mean, I think you should be able to articulate how you feel in a professional manner, in a professional way. So just in that environment, just say what you got to say without causing any verbal recourse.
Yeah.
We
have our brother Sean Batson. That was my question. I think you answered it. How do you deal with family when you're going through grief? And I think it's like an awareness that, okay, we're all grieving.
Yeah.
And we're grieving in different ways because each of us have individual relationships with the person who's passed on that could be vastly different.
Yes.
From one another. I could have a relationship that looks like point A and yours could look like point Z. You could still be like, I'm not mourning this person, but I am. And so understanding that, like my brother and I had two different relationships with our father. So my grief is different than his, but he doesn't say to me, well, why are you still crying? It's just, this is your process.
Right.
So I don't know. Someone says, oh, they cut off there. Jonathan Cherry, can you put your full comment up so we can read it up?
And I want to address something on the family grief real quick. If the comment up, go ahead. If the comment is up.
No. We're waiting for him. Go ahead. You go ahead.
What I was saying that you also have to discuss is like the family assets. That leads to a lot of dysfunction in the family. And I mean, no, I'm serious. It's just
yes.
What I'm saying is that as our community, we have to start thinking, preparing for it, like you said, preparing for it, because wills, advanced directives, and those are things of those natures. So it cuts down on who's doing what. Right. And I use myself for an example. My wife and myself, we took care of our life insurance policies, because if I go before my wife, I already know that's one less thing she really don't have to worry about. It's done, because she's going to be in that grieving process. So, or myself, that's one less thing on my plate that I don't have to worry about. So I think that's a key point of dealing with family, because that's a lot of bickering that goes on, going back to the soul food conversation.
Yeah.
My
Yes,
God.
indeed.
I hope we as Black folk are listening to what he just said. You need a will. You need, before you do anything else today, I don't care if you got to write it on a piece of paper.
That's
you
all
need
it
a
is.
will.
Yeah.
You need a will. Or what you're going to have is family grief. Trust me. I don't care if you only have a nickel in your name. Somebody wants that nickel.
That's right.
Yeah.
You need a will.
Yep. And you can't get angry about what the person who has passed on has left to whomever.
There you go.
You don't get upset. It is what it is.
Yeah.
It's in black and white.
Yes, and now you're fighting over these pearl earrings and that pearl necklace.
That's too much. It is. I've been to too many funerals.
Yes.
It's just too much.
Yeah. One more comment from Brother Batson. I was feeling some kind of way when Sister Monica said secrets. When I was in my 50s, I was in my 50s before I found out my father was not my real father. That affected me, my children, nieces, and nephews. Yeah, those family secrets.
Yeah.
And then that leads to another set of grief.
Yeah.
Oh, and he added, and I can't ask them about it because they've passed on.
Wow.
Yeah, and so you end up with
unanswered
the grief of
questions.
Unanswered questions.
Unanswered questions. Why? You know, there's so many times. Okay, if we look on the flip side at adults, so many times we think we are helping by keeping secrets.
You're not.
When it's really doing the opposite.
Yeah.
You're hurting.
So, and it's and even as 50 now, it affects your children way down the line and their children's children. Instead of just children can handle the truth. Trust me, they can handle the truth. But it causes so much more when when we still say, yeah, there's a Santa Claus. Okay, I'm
Yeah, that's a really traumatic one too. But go ahead.
I just think that the comment is like, that's part of not knowing who you are. And when I mean like your generational tree and finding back, because you got to know who you are to move forward through life. So that's the only comment I had for it.
Yep.
Yeah, knowing who you are in your generational tree. That's important. And that's already something that we're coming to at a deficit as a people. And so when we're railroaded with this news of, oh, this is not my father, this is actually my
uncle,
this is not
cousin.
my cousin, this is actually my father, or whatever, however the family structured it, it's still traumatic. It's very traumatic. And that's happened in my family too. And it's always been like an undercurrent, or finding siblings. I just discovered that I have a half sister, and it was an undercurrent discussion, but never confirmed until during the pandemic. So, yeah, it's like, oh, really? Okay. So these are the things that we must talk and communicate.
Jonathan finished his thought. Candace.
He did. Okay. Here it is. Thank you, Jonathan. He says, oh, did you click it at the same time, Pass? Here we go.
It was up for a second.
Where is it? It's not.
I didn't click it. I didn't touch it. You want me to get it?
It's popping up.
I'm putting it on there. Hold on one second.
There it is.
In my experience of grief, I use the process of realizing what is the root of the pain, then try to purge it, and then I can start healing.
That's
What are your
good.
thoughts on that?
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, that's good.
That's very good.
Mm.
You gotta know what you got. Yeah, but you gotta have that root of the grief to actually start. You gotta know where it's actually coming from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, Beverly Manigo. Hey, hey, Reverend Manigo. She says restoration doesn't come. Wait a minute.
Come without. She wrote it twice.
Yeah. Let me go to the right one. Restoration doesn't come without conversation.
I like that.
Yeah, that seems to be the common denominator. Period. Doesn't matter the relationship. We're not going to even get to friendships. Yeah. That's another thing in it. A whole other thing of itself. Yeah. But the common denominator is communication.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And you have to communication, giving people space to grieve their own way. Mm-hmm. My way may not be your way, but that doesn't mean that your way is wrong.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then I love the timestamp. I'm about to implement that for everything. Not just my husband, but the kids too. You're not ready? Let's put a timestamp on it.
That's right.
Oh Lord, what you done started, Clifton.
You gotta respect the time. You gotta respect the time.
Yes.
But that does let that person know that you respect the fact that you're not ready to talk about it right now. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then I'm not following behind saying, no, we're gonna talk. No, we're gonna timestamp it.
Right. But let him give you the timestamp, Candace.
Right.
I know. Yes.
Your time is
that's the disclaimer.
Right.
Right. I know that's part of the point. But yeah, I love that idea. It really does. At least it says, I'm not putting you off. I am taking my space and my time to get my thoughts together or whatever, so that when we do come back at blah, blah, blah time, I'm ready to talk about it.
Yep.
There you go.
Yep.
And everybody's happy.
Exactly.
Yes.
You got what you need. I got what I need.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And we're discussing it. Yeah. Okay. Hold on one second. I'm just looking at the comments because we have a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
That have come through. Here's one real quick. How do you help a young person deal with the absence of a parent who they never met? That is a form of grief also.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. And there could be different reasons why they haven't met. It could be because the parent doesn't want to have anything to do with them. It could be because of death. It could be because of incarceration. It could be deportation.
Yeah.
It could be a number of things. So depending on what the reason is I think is the way you address it, with young people. But just to make sure that they know that it's not because of anything they did wrong, right, so that they don't take on, the responsibility of that. It's not because you're not wanted, you're not loved. It's not because you aren't beautiful or any of those things. This is just a decision that this person made, or this is the situation, that's happened. And, you just help them through that, just process whatever they're feeling.
And fall back on the village.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And that goes back to what you were saying earlier, Pastor, about your sphere of influence. And who are those people in your circle that you can rely on? And that's important, right, because there may be someone in your village who your child kind of looks up to.
Yes.
Or that can say something that will speak to your child in a way that you could say the same thing and they don't hear it.
Right.
Exactly. There's always somebody that the child just put their confidence in.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And there's no reason to be envious of that person.
Yes.
Because God put that person
yep,
in your village for a reason.
For a reason. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This has been a really great discussion. I feel like we only scratched the surface when it comes to family and and the issues that arise from that. But we did get our gems again, which is um well, one, we need to have those family assets, get
Yeah.
that will,
Yeah.
figure out
That's what
what you
our
want,
brother
what
Clarence acts right here.
yeah. Oh, how is it how is it important how important is it to do pre-planning of funerals and etc.? Oh, that
Uh,
I think that's vital.
Yeah.
yeah, I just think, like I stated earlier, it comes down to having things in order. With your less, not putting so much burden on your significant other,
Mhm.
and because they, like I stated earlier, they're gonna be grieving, and to have those things lined up to where only thing you have to do is, well, I ain't saying it like minimizing it, but only have to do with certain things. It takes a lot off of you, because if you don't have those things in order, you have to deal with the funeral, the getting everything in order. So it's very important to just have those things assigned to at least lessen the burden.
Yeah. And honor, and not, and also it's important to honor, what the person asked you to do. If they want to be
Right.
cremated, don't say, well, I'm gonna cremate them after we gonna put the body for
Mm-hmm.
viewing. Like, if they didn't ask for that, don't, I mean, some people do that, and I don't want to be, you know, I don't want to
Right.
discredit or, be disrespectful to what their decisions are, but, honor what the person, has asked you to do.
You're right.
Yes. Yes. And I think too, in some instances, it might be good to actually tell others what your wishes are. I I guess having it in writing,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
because they might say, all right, for instance, my mother-in-law says she wants to wear a red dress. I'm gonna make sure she has a red dress.
Right.
Her
Right.
children, however, are gonna be like, why would she want a red dress? I need her to tell them she wants a
Right.
red dress.
Right.
So they
Right.
won't fight me.
So
And I'm gonna
the
get her in
best
the
the
red
best way
dress.
so you don't so the best way so they don't fight you is to have it in black and white. Because
Yeah.
this is what's her final wishes right here. And I just slide
Red
the
dress.
paper over to her. Yeah, red
Yes,
dress. That's it.
Candace, I know we're almost done.
yes,
Can I propose this last question from
yes.
Brother Jonathan? This was kind of deep.
Yeah.
Mm. How do you approach a close family member who avoids all conversations that they believe will be tough because they are anti-confrontational? There is no opportunity for accountability and healing. Jonathan, you asking some good questions.
Mm.
We all encounter that. How do we interact with that?
And I think it just depends. You have to remember that some of our family members are dealing with anxiety and depression. We can't negate that. And this, I don't know if this is the situation in this particular question that's being asked, but that's normally a behavior of someone who is, having a challenge with how to regulate their own emotions and how to, maybe address certain, situations that may cause them to feel different ways on the inside, and they're not able to really, verbalize what they're feeling. Um, and anti-confrontational is just they don't know how.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They don't know how to deal with their, like you said, they don't know how to deal with their feelings.
Yeah.
So that's a little slippery slope, in my opinion, because if you confront them, they're just going to avoid the cold conversation as well. So
Yeah.
it goes back to probably a safe space or a small conversation that can lead up to that big conversation. You got to plant little mustard seeds and see everything grow up like that. So
Yeah. And if you have the relationship with this family member, ask them what's the best way for them, to talk about certain situations.
Mm,
How can we, what's the best time of day, place? Like, you may have to do that.
yeah, that's good. Place, time, and and how? What's the best way for you to communicate it?
Yeah, what will make you feel most comfortable in, confronting this situation or dealing with this situation?
Yeah. Well, I thank you both for making time
Awesome,
today for this
awesome, awesome.
discussion. This won't be the last because there's so much
Yeah.
to dig in and to uncover with just these topics in and of itself. So thank you for coming on. I want people to know, how can they find you? How can they find the resource that is Whole Family Healing Group?
Oh, we are online, wholefamilyhealinggroup.com. We are on social media, Facebook, Instagram. We are on TikTok. We're everywhere. YouTube, any platform you can think of, we are there. And you can also schedule appointments easily online with myself, with Cliff. We have other amazing clinicians. And on Tuesday, we will have a psychiatrist, a medical doctor on board. And I'm so excited. She's a Black female psychiatrist joining us. And we will also have a psychiatric nurse practitioner student on
Wow.
board starting
Awesome.
Monday. So really, really excited. So we really want to help people and families heal. And we've also just been approved to see active military families.
Awesome.
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 What an
And
amazing
before you
resource.
start, please,
Yes.
those of you who are watching, please share the information about Whole Family Healing Group.
Yes.
Please share it in your circle. Please share it with everybody you can. So let them know that these resources are here for us, y'all, for us, for people that look like us.
Yeah.
Please share this resource.
Yes.
Thank you.
I am typing it now so that your website address will be in the chat.
Okay.
There it is. So, as we're wrapping up, thank you again so much for joining us today. We look forward to future dialogues. And as everyone, as Miesha shared, you know where to find Whole Family Healing Group on their website, on social media, and just follow them. And yes, make your appointments, because you can believe in God and have a relationship with God and go to therapy.
Yes.
Because God anointed Clifton and Miesha and everyone else at Whole Family to be therapists.
Oh, yes. I take no credit for this. This is all by God's
all
grace.
His work,
No
His work
credit.
and His will.
Yes. That's
Yes.
right.
Yes. And it's good to know that you all are believers. So that should make our family feel a little more comfortable too. Call them up. We need to heal. And this is how we're going to do it.
Yep.
So thank you for joining us today for our dialogue on how grief impacts relationships. Please keep your eye out on our flyers for next month's session. And until tomorrow morning, which is Jersey Sunday, wear your jerseys for church service tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. We will see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful. Wonderful.